The days of your fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers MBA are over. On the front page centerpiece this week, the MBA Reboot. Enrollment is rising, led by more women and people of color. Schools are rolling out more flexible programs to attract students, and nowhere is there more of a boom than right here in Greater Cincinnati, where enrollment is outpacing the rest of the country. Hillary Burns wrote this story, and she talked about the new math of higher education with Courier editor Rob Dahmeyer.
Thank you very much. Hillary, thanks so much for being here all the way from Boston. Hillary works for the Boston Business Journal, which is a sister paper of the Cincinnati Business Courier, and she was the lead writer on the MBA package that is running this week in the Business Courier. Again, Hillary, thanks so much for being here. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Why did our parent company, which is called American City Business Journals, why did we decide to do this project to begin with?
It's interesting. We have heard and run stories in all of our markets about how full-time MBA programs are kind of going away and disappearing more and more. But when we actually dug into the data, we saw that enrollment has increased quite significantly. So since 2002, there's been a 46% increase in MBA enrollment across the country. And for comparison, for colleges and universities at the undergraduate level, it's only been an increase of 6% during that same time. So we kind of were wondering, well, what's driving that growth if we're seeing the full-time programs going away? And when we looked at it, it really came down to online programs and part-time programs popping up at schools across the country in all different cities. And those are more accessible, more flexible for a broader range of students. So that's really where the growth is. So we decided to dive into it and kind of lay that out and call some of these schools and ask them about their strategies and how they've gotten to this point.
So is that where this project started? Was it with conversations with people, or did you look at the data first? How exactly, and this is a big, as our readers will see, this is a big project that our company did. I'm just wondering how it got started. Like, what was the germ of the thing?
So it was a team effort, but we definitely looked at the data first and noticed those trends, and then dove in and saw what schools are seeing the most growth, and even for traditional full-time programs, which of those have become more diverse over the years. And we started calling schools based on the data and set up interviews. And it was really interesting once we dug into it. Like I said, there's been an explosion in online and part-time programs, so we kind of lay that out in the story. But then we also, for example, talked to Vanderbilt, which is a prestigious university with a well-regarded MBA program. And it was interesting when we talked to them, they said, actually, we're noticing those same trends. So we have overhauled our recruitment process for our MBA. So instead of I think all schools, not just Vanderbilt, all top elite schools used to take the approach of we'll sit in the ivory tower and the students will come to us. And instead they decided to take a more proactive approach and actually recruit students. And they realized they needed to also reduce barriers to entry, because not everyone can afford and go through the arduous process of applying to an MBA. So they took away application fees for many people. They temporarily took away the GMAT requirement, and they said that process has led to a big uptick in applications.
How much of this growth is being driven by companies and what they are demanding or wanting from workers, and how much of this is driven by just the simple idea that people want to be more saleable when they're hitting the market?
I think it's a combination of both, because the MBA programs work closely with local employers to make sure what they're offering, what the local employers need. But at the same time, I think people want to further their education, and they want to be eligible for higher salaries and have that higher education experience of an MBA, but not many people are willing to give up 1 to 2 to 3 years of salary and go full-time student. That's a big sacrifice. So I think that the part-time and online programs you can do on the side of a full-time job or part-time job is more attractive to a more diverse pool of candidates, which in turn is making our workforce more diverse.
Right. Last question for you. Was there anything that surprised you when you were digging into this, whether it was somebody you talked to or a piece of data, something that really jumped out? I mean, you gave that pretty incredible stat at the beginning here about how it's grown, but what did you hear?
Well, that was surprising, and just the overall kind of trend of online learning becoming more desirable for people. But I think what's also interesting is how the coronavirus plays into this. And I think that's only going to accelerate these trends now that everyone's working from home. Learning from home is more normal now at all levels because it was forced upon us that way. But that's only going to accelerate the desire to do school online and part-time. So I think that surprised me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, I have 2 kids in college, and, we're paying a pretty hefty price for them to be half remote right now and maybe full remote. Who knows, how this semester is going to go. But I think people are willing to pay for good online learning, and MBA certainly could benefit from that. Well, thank you very much for being here, Hillary. Really appreciate your time, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.